Canucks trade deadline has come and gone. Benning told us not to expect much because the entire team is ravaged with COVID, and he thought it wouldn't be the right thing to do to start uprooting players now, sending people that are sick, their families are sick. So we didn't expect much, and I believed him, and I was going to give him a pass with that. Sure, why not? But he went out there and he made some trades. We had Adam Gaudette traded for Matthew Highmore to Chicago. Jordy Ben sent to the Jets for a 6th-round pick and a 4th-round pick for Madison Bowie and a 5th-round pick. So let's go through them. I'd say overall, the pros are Benning got an asset for the expiring contract of Ben. He moved Gaudette before potentially overpaying him and being stuck with him. They have more cap flexibility for a very, very important offseason. The cons, though, they sold really low on Gaudette and got a really low return on Ben, and they also couldn't move Sutter, Roussel, Beagle, any of the other players we really would have loved to see moved. So let's go through each trade. Gaudette for Matthew Highmore. I'd say the pros, after having a day or so to think about this, the pro of this is that the Canucks are actually thinking ahead for once. I think that if they would have gone to an RFA contract negotiation with Gaudette, like they did with Virtanen, they could have screwed themselves and been stuck with a contract where Jake, they just signed him. And because they did this backloaded contract, putting all the money in the second year like they did with Holtby, so I guess Aquilini could avoid having to pay. He wanted to pay as little money up front as possible while there was no attendance to hockey games. Fine, I get it. But when you put all that money and salary in the second year, now Holtby is probably a far less desirable piece for the Seattle Kraken to potentially grab, even though he's had a pretty crummy year stats-wise anyway. And also Virtanen. And that came up when they were trying to trade Jake earlier this year, and they had mentioned they were trying to trade Gaudette as well. They might have had a match for a couple places. We heard they were maybe going to trade him to Calgary for 18-year-old Sam Bennett. And they couldn't get it done. And one of the rumors that came up was that Jake's contract, it was too much in the second year, and they wanted to either do something else to make that contract work or have the Canucks retain, and they don't want to do that. So when you see Gaudette get traded for a guy you've never heard of, Matthew Highmore, and you look at Matthew Highmore's contract, he's making $725,000 this year and the next before he's an RFA. So you know exactly what you're paying this guy. It's basically bargain basement, rock bottom prices. So they're doing themselves a favor in terms of cap space. They're not going to be stuck with a Gaudette contract that's difficult to move. They are, God, you think of that. Could they have sold any lower on this guy? Gaudette last season, I think he was on pace for what, like half a point a game pace. That's fantastic. For a second, third line young center who was a Hobey Baker winner, he was drafted in the 5th round, sure, but he had blossomed, and you'd think you could get more for him than that. And for them to wait until he's had a really terrible year production-wise, and he's been scratched, he's been stuck on a 4th line, you are not doing a good job of showcasing your players and trying to get anything for them. This was the worst time to trade him, but it seems like the Canucks were just done with him. Benning didn't hold back any punches when he was discussing him in that press conference, saying they wanted Gaudette to be better at faceoffs, they wanted him to be able to penalty kill, they wanted him to work on his two-way game, and they were let down. Gaudette was complaining to them, saying he felt like he deserved to be in the top 6. And maybe if the Canucks would have kept him in the AHL for a year, taught him the pro game, maybe he would have figured it out there. Maybe if they focused on making him a winger a lot quicker, utilizing his speed and shot. Because Gaudette's strengths are, once he has the puck, he's a decent stick handler, decent playmaker, and he's got a good shot. His weaknesses, I think his hockey sense is terrible. And when you're supposed to be a center, that's not going to work. I feel like, and this is crazy. I heard some advanced statistics, and you can't lump them all together. But these statistics were saying that Gaudette had a very high expected goals per 60. If you actually watch the games, you look at every time Goddard touches the puck or he's involved with the puck and his lines on the ice, he makes several bad decisions a game. I'd say he frustrated me like no other. I'd say him and Roussel. I'd say him and Roussel were probably the worst players when it came to decisions they made with the puck. He looks like he's getting a lot done because he's fast and he's always hustling around. But really, if you watch it, he made a bad play. He made a bad dump. He was rarely ever able to get the puck into the offensive zone and establish anything. He struggled in the neutral zone. He's useless in the defensive zone. The guy does not make positive things happen and create shots. He was terrible. Him and Roussel, I'd say, were at the bottom in terms of positive things they do with the puck. So, on that note, however, here is the part where it could come back and bite you in the ass. Because Goddard did have a great season last year. He was shit in the playoffs, but he said he was struggling with this digestive issue. And that he wasn't able to put on any weight. And for a slightly undersized, thin center, you need all the strength you can get. Especially he's a growing boy. He's 25? He needs to be going into his peak, his prime years. But with this digestive issue, that would make sense why he's looked a step behind, easily muscled off the puck, not able to get his shots off quick enough because defensemen see it coming. They just put the stick in the way. In the NHL, you've got to get that shot off real quick. Even Brock Besser, one of the best shooters in the NHL, has had to learn that. If you give a defenseman a moment, they'll put their stick right in the way, and that shot that you tried to put top corner is now going up to the 300 section in the stands. Well, it's actually going to hit the net, and then it'll come back down to the ice. So, although I think Goddard has played pretty terrible most of this season, in the playoffs he really struggled to get a spot, the digestive issue would make sense. This is a high-level game. And he's, like I said, he's a small guy, so he needs every advantage he can get. We might see him come out of this digestive problem, and he might flourish on the Blackhawks playing. He might find a spot in the top six as a winger or on a third-line scoring line with a better center. I get it. Playing with Sutter is terrible. Sutter cannot make plays. He's very slow. So that would be obviously quite shitty. If he shitty for us to see him go and not do it in Vancouver. Good for him if he can make a mark in Chicago. So I hope he can, but it's always one of those things where you feel kind of selfish about it. So Highmore coming back. The guy, I don't know anything about him. He hasn't had too many NHL games, but he did play in the playoffs last year for Chicago, and in 9 games, he had 3 goals and 1 assist. So that's a 37.5 shooting percentage. That's not sustainable, but it does show that he could be one of those grinding bottom 6 guys that plays the right way for the playoffs. He's apparently Benning likes this guy just like he likes Bowie, the other player that he picked up, and he was high on him. He likes the way he plays. The guy apparently is fast and physical, can play a playoff style hockey. And the nice thing about him is that the Canucks are hopefully gearing up to clear out all this dead weight they've put down there and fill it up with Howerlucks, VCs, Boyds. I already forgot his name. Highmores. And then you got some room to play with. You got some players where if you got to clear everybody out, you can fill up your lines. They've got a hell of a season ahead of them. Trying to play 19 games in 30 odd days is borderline employee abuse. And the Canucks probably, I'm sure some of them are considering, should we even do this? What I'd like to see the Canucks do to get off the trade deadline for a minute is go out there, play this insane schedule, or don't. But if they do, and I'm assuming they will, just roll 4 lines, bring up tons of young guys, and just lose games and blame it on the NHL. This is the only time you're going to be able to do it. I know NHL players are incredibly competitive. No NHL players, the good ones especially, they don't want to lose. They don't see. There was somebody who was talking about how they had an interview with Chris Pronger, and one of the journalists said, "Oh, are you guys excited? You might get the number 1 overall pick this year." And Pronger said he was incredulous. He's like, "No, that would mean we lost." They don't want to. They're in it. If they're not mathematically eliminated, these players, in order to get to the highest level of your sport, you need to be that competitive. So I understand. But I would just like to see the Canucks go out there. Don't get anybody hurt for next year. Overplaying defensemen and your top players. Demko just not being rested and pulling a hamstring. That might be enough. Just having Holtby and Demko and maybe DiPietro split these starts. I don't know how they're going to get DiPietro in the lineup. And don't have anybody get injured for next year. Play Holtby. Lose those games. So let's see those defense. Brogan Rafferty looked terrified last time he played. Now's the time to give him some reps. Leo Levy scored a fucking goal, and his reward was getting kicked out of the lineup. Benning said we weren't going to sign Jordy Ben anyways. He seemed pissed off in this conference, in this press conference. Jordy Ben, he played great this season. I didn't like his game in the playoffs. But him with Hughes, I think he gained a lot of confidence playing with Hughes. He started holding onto the puck more. He wasn't panicking. He was making really safe plays out of the defensive zone, through the neutral zone. And that's all you can ask for. Got a lot of shots on net. When the puck ends up on his stick in the offensive zone, you're not really excited that he's the one about to take the shot. But at least he's in the right spot and he's getting a shot towards the net. And you never know. Could be a tip. Could be a rebound. At least it's pressure. He played great this year. And the guy can play both sides. And right-handed defensemen or defensemen that can play the right side. And that's what he excels at, I believe. Whatever is his off wing, his offhand, he plays the best at. But, he can play both sides. And right-handed defensemen are a premium. He's tough. You need so much defense when you go into the playoffs because you're going to lose people. It's a tough position. It's physical. You play the most minutes. You're grinding it out. And Winnipeg was smart to get him, and they didn't pay a lot for him. Only a 6th-round pick. Speaking of picks, the Canucks traded their 4th-rounder for defenseman Madison Bowie and a 5th-round pick. This seems like a good trade. Benning seems really high on Bowie. The guy is an NHL regular, I do believe. Very low risk to give your 4th up for a 5th. Be nicer if it was a 5th for a 6th, but okay. This upcoming draft is going to be crazy. I can't wait to look back in a couple years and see who was drafted in, with like 2nd and 3rd, 4th round picks that GMs were just and scouts were so excited that fell that low. So that trade, I like. They definitely need more. They need all the defense they can get, but I do want to see Levy and Rathbone. And maybe Brogan Rafferty and Jalen Chatfield looked like a solid player. The thing with defense is there's only so many players. So you can't just load up and have a bunch of guys you think would be good as long as they're on the 3rd pairing because there's just not that much room. You need to make your defense count. And the Canucks are in a bad spot where Hughes, we know, has elite offensive skill, but he seems like he really struggled this season with defensive assignments. Getting knocked off the puck, didn't look like much of a threat. He had a few nice poke checks here and there, but when the other team was able to establish in his zone, he was kind of at the mercy. Tyler Myers, too, for such a big guy, he's so slow. He is, once they get down low established, he just parks himself in front of that net, and the Tyler Myers shift timer comes on the screen, and we wait to see how long it's going to take for him to get off the ice. And even if they clear the puck out, he might not make it to that bench, especially in the second period long change. Edler, what are they going to do with him? I don't think Benning has any kind of a loyalty to him, although he did give him a pretty sweet contract, 2 years, what was it, $6 million? Edler really struggled. Even on a 3rd pairing, they have such a weak top 6 defenseman that I think it might be time for Edler to go, unless you can get him at $2 million, $3 million, but I don't think Edler is going to take. He's not going to take anything super low. He's not going to take $1 million. No way. And he might not want to go anywhere else. He might just call it a career with COVID, with his age, with the grind of these last seasons. I think he's a smart player, but Anytime you play him over a third pairing minutes, he's just going to get into trouble and take penalties. But I would like him on the third pairing, but then you got to make the money work. If you're trying to fill out a roster and you're paying, say, $3 million to your third pairing guy, that doesn't really work. So just might be time for him to head on to another team or retire. And he's been a fantastic player for the Canucks and a real calm presence, but it's just not fair to him that they're putting him in these positions. Schmid. Hopefully Schmid will be able to calm down a bit next season and just, I guess, establish his game more. I liked what we saw out of Juolevi. I thought he was looking great. He was really confident. He was picking up that puck, moving it through the neutral zone, doing what the Canucks really struggled to do, and the guy scored a goal. And then you bench him. Ridiculous. Chatfield looked really solid. I think Juolevi could be top 4. Chatfield could be, like a 4, 5, 6 guy. Rafferty looked totally terrified, but I mean, it's difficult. He's had some time to learn in the AHL, although they've had their shutdowns. Be nice to see him come back, get some reps, and of course, I want to see Jack Rathbone. The guy can move. I saw some of those highlights of him in the AHL in his first game, I think, and goddamn did he look good. So you'd love to see that up there. The Canucks could have a totally new look defensive core with a lot of guys that can skate. If you got Hughes, Schmid, Rathbone, Juolevi's looking faster. That's a lot of movement down there. You've moved out Ben, and then Tyler Myers. I guess we got to start thinking about the Seattle expansion draft. The thing with Benning is I just wish we had a GM like you see Steve Yzerman, or what Brian Burke did with the Canucks, getting the Sedins, or Mike Gillis. You see these GMs go out there and be creative, and Benning is just not creative. Benning is very old school. His best trades are usually 1-for-1. You take Goodbranson, I'll take Pearson. Amazing trade. Maybe Highmore works out for Goddard. There you go, 1-for-1. I'll take a reclamation project off your hands for this low pick. The guy doesn't seem to want to accumulate draft picks. The Detroit fucking Red Wings with Yzerman have something like 7 draft picks in the first 3 rounds coming up. They're just loading up. We're seeing teams in this deadline getting a first-round pick for Foligno. Getting a first-round pick for, what was his name, Savard? It's just crazy. It's some sort of French name, I don't know. And to see the Canucks not able to get too many picks, albeit they don't really have a lot of talent out there, but you just don't see Benning making these 3-team creative deals to make the cap money work. And they, like every team, need help with the cap, especially with a flat cap. And I just don't see Benning coming up with any kind of ideas with Seattle and other teams that are worried about their protected list. They don't really need to protect too many players. I really hope they don't protect Myers, but let's be honest, Benning recently signed Myers to that big contract. I think he still loves Myers no matter how Myers plays. Myers is playing exactly like he's always played before he came to Vancouver. This is how he played in Winnipeg. This is why they were fine letting him go. Although they thought they had a lot more defense at the time and things quickly changed for them and now it's a weakness. But Benning's going to protect Myers. He loves Myers. As long as we have Benning, we will have Myers. I really hope they don't give up Cole Lind. I hope Tyler Mott doesn't get picked up. I'd be so pissed. So that was our Canucks trade deadline. What did you think? I'm thinking overall, it's nice to see the Canucks plan ahead with Goddard, although it does kind of feel, they just sold so low and they didn't get a great return for Ben. They didn't do anything creative, but if Highmore ends up anything like Tyler Mott, that would be fantastic. Doesn't have to be the same player, obviously, but if he could be a useful guy, they're more flexible than they were before, and they definitely needed that. So let me know what you think. And thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.